Nelson had always dreamed of finding the perfect partner, a woman who would love him unconditionally, support his ambitions, and stand by him through life's ups and downs. When he met Paula, he thought he had found that woman. She was everything he wanted: beautiful, intelligent, and caring. Her infectious smile light up any room, and her laugh was a melody that stayed with him long after he left her presence. Nelson had been instantly drawn to her from the very first day they met. She carried herself with grace and elegance, and her confidence was on another level. They spent most time talking about everything, from their favorite books to their inspirations, and this made Nelson love her more. Over the next few months, Nelson and Paula became inseparable. They shared countless moments of joy, exploring life together, and it wasn't long before Nelson realized he was in love. When he proposed to her a year later, she tearfully said yes, and they began planning their future together. Nelson thought their marriage was perfect. They rented a small cozy apartment in Lagos. He worked as an engineer while Paula managed a small boutique she had started from scratch. Their lives were busy, but they always made time for each other. Nelson felt blessed to have a partner who was so supportive and loving. But there was one thing he couldn't quite understand: Paula's relationship with his younger sister Linda. Linda had moved in with them temporarily while looking for a job in the city. Paula and Linda got along exceptionally well, and Nelson was grateful. He loved seeing his wife bond with his family. Little did he know there was more to their friendship than he thought. Nelson had no reason to suspect anything unusual about his wife's relationship with his sister until one evening when everything changed. That day, he left work early, feeling unusually exhausted. As he approached his apartment, he noticed the lights were dim and there was a faint sound of music playing inside. With a smiling face, he thought Paula might have prepared a surprise for him. He opened the door gently, not wanting to spoil the moment. As he walked down the hallway, he noticed the living room was empty. He could hear soft whispers and laughter coming from the bedroom. Curious and excited, he tiptoed towards the slightly open door. What he saw next shattered his heart. Paula and his sister Linda were lying on the bed, their bodies entwined in an intimate embrace. Nelson froze, unable to process the sight before him. His wife, his beloved Paula, was passionately kissing his sister. The realization hit him like a wave. "Paula!" he shouted. The two women pulled apart, shock and guilt written all over their faces. Paula jumped off the bed, grabbing a robe to cover herself, while Linda sat up, avoiding Nelson's eyes. "Nelson, I," Paula began, but Nelson had already turned and stormed out of the room. His heart pounded and his mind raced. He felt an emotional betrayal, confusion, and a deep pain. Nelson drove hopelessly through the city, trying to make sense of what had happened. He parked by the roadside and sat in silence. The sound of the environment crashed against his heartbeat. Hours passed before he returned home in search for an answer. When he walked back into the apartment, Paula was waiting for him in the living room. Linda was nowhere to be seen. Nelson stood in front of the living room with his arms crossed, staring at his wife. "Nelson, I can explain," she said in a low tone. Explain what, Paula? That I just walked in on you with my sister? His voice was calm, but the hurt was evidence. What have you been hiding from me? Paula's eyes were filled with tears at that moment. I never meant for you to find out like this. I've been struggling with my feelings for a long time. She paused, wiping a tear from her cheek. I've always had an attraction to women, even before we met. But when you came into my life, I thought I could change. I thought I could be the wife you deserved. Nelson's hands clenched into fists. So what am I to you, Paula? A cover? A lie? No, it's not like that, she pleaded. I love you, Nelson. I do. But my feelings for women have never gone away. When Linda moved in, I got confused. Confused? Nelson shouted. You were intimate with my sister Paula. That's not confusion. That's betrayal. Paula's tears flowed freely again. I know, and I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I She struggled to find the right words. I've been living a lie, trying to be someone I'm not. I don't know how to fix this. Nelson felt a sharp pain in his throat. The woman he had trusted and loved had been hiding a secret that tore his world apart. I need some time, Paula. I need to think. He stormed out of the house. Over the next few days, Nelson distanced himself from Paula. He stayed at his friend's place, unable to face the reality of his situation. Linda, feeling guilty and ashamed, moved out of the apartment without saying goodbye. Nelson felt as if everything he knew and trusted was slipping through his fingers. Paula called and texted every day, apologizing and begging for a chance to explain herself further. But Nelson wasn't ready to talk. He needed time to sort through emotions and figure out what he truly wanted. He confided in his best friend Chidi, who listened to him patiently. I understand how you feel, bro, Chidi said. But the question is, do you still love your wife? Can you move past these trying times? Nelson sighed. I don't know. I thought I knew everything about her, but now it feels like she's a stranger to me. Chidi nodded. Maybe you need to talk to her one last time. You owe it to yourself to get closure, whether you decide to stay or walk away. Nelson eventually agreed to meet Paula in a quiet restaurant, far from the eyes of people who might know them. When she walked into the restaurant, she looked anxious. Her eyes were red from crying. Nelson could see she was hurting, but he wasn't sure if he could trust her again. Nelson, I know I've hurt you, Paula began, her voice filled with remorse. But I want you to know that I never intended to deceive you. I was scared, scared of who I was and what people would think. Nelson sighed, leaning back in his chair. So what do we do now, Paula? Do you want to be with me, or do you want to be free to explore your feelings with women? Paula hesitated, then began. I love you, Nelson, but I can't deny who I am anymore. I need to figure out my identity without pretending. She looked down at her hands as tears streamed down her face. I think we need to separate. Nelson felt a sharp pain in his chest. Part of him wanted to hold on to her, to fight for the woman he loved. But deep down, he knew she was right. They could continue living a lie, and he deserved someone who would love him wholeheartedly. Maybe this is for the best, he finally said, his voice heavy with sadness. I want you to be happy, Paula, even if that means we go in our separate ways. They parted on amicably in good terms, promising to remain friends. Paula eventually moved out, and Nelson focused on rebuilding his life. The experience left a scar, but it also taught him a valuable lesson about love, acceptance, and the importance of being true to oneself. Months later, as he walked through the city, he felt a sense of peace. He knew his heart could heal, and one day he would find someone who would love him the way he deserved.